What up, Instagram? This is just for you. I was just doing some reading and I wanted to share some of my thoughts out there for you guys. Uh, it's from the scriptures, Luke chapter 12, verse 8. And I tell you, everyone who acknowledges me, Jesus, before men, the Son of Man will also acknowledge before the angels of God. But the one who denies me before men will be denied before the angels of God. And everyone who speaks a word against the Son of Man will be forgiven. But the one who blasphemes against the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven. And when they bring you before the synagogues and the rulers and the authorities, do not be anxious about how you should defend yourself or what you should say. For the Holy Spirit will teach you in that very hour what you ought to say. The part that sticks out that I wanted to talk about that goes along with this book that I'm reading is verse 10. And everyone who speaks a word against the Son of Man will be forgiven. That's crazy. And anyone who speaks against Jesus will be forgiven. But one who blasphemes against the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven. What does that mean? There's a lot of things that people call the unforgivable sin. I thought for a while that it was, committing suicide was the unforgivable sin. Other people have their own ideas or interpretations of what it means. But right here, it's saying that it's the one who blasphemes against the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven. And so I was reading this. It's in the book Church History in Plain Language, Bruce Shelley. It's exactly what it says, and it's amazing. It's really good if you're into history or want to have a better grasp of how things came to be, especially as it relates to the church, Christianity, and basically from where it started into what it's become today. I highly recommend this. I find myself referencing it all the time, but so in here it's talking about what about unforgivable sins is the title of this part. And it says that during the first 2 centuries, most Christians believed that baptism canceled all sins committed up to that moment in the believer's life. Serious post-baptismal lapses called for special treatment. 3 sins in particular: sexual immorality, murder, and the denial of the faith, apostasy, were considered forgivable by God, but never by the church. Interesting. The penalty for any one of these was exclusion from the fellowship of the church and deprivation of the Lord's Supper, since the communion, most believed, was a special channel of divine grace. Withholding it placed a person's salvation in peril. Ignatius had called it the medicine of immortality and the antidote of death. The first half of the 3rd century was a long period of calm for the church. Few were called before Roman officials to renounce their faith. Some felt spiritual warfare was a thing of the past. Disciplines and moral standards were relaxed. The first to accept repentant sinners as a matter of policy was the Bishop of Rome, Callistus, 217 to 222. Remitted penitent members who had committed adultery and abortion. He argued that the church is like Noah's Ark. It is unclean as well as clean beast that can be found. Then he defended his actions by insisting that the Bishop of Rome was close to Peter, and the Lord had given keys to Peter to bind and to loose the sins of men. This marks the first time a Bishop of Rome claimed his special authority. This is leading towards the conversation about the Catholic Church and the Pope. But that's not what this is talking about quite yet. Tertullian, living in North Africa at the time, was horrified. "We do not forgive apostates," he cried. "And shall we forgive adulterers?" he asked. It was a voice from the past. The future rested on Callistus. If those guilty of adultery could be remitted to the church, why not apostates? By mid-century, many were asking this very question. here's the important part I highlighted. In AD 250, the most violent persecution the church had yet faced was instigated by the Emperor Decius from 249 to 251. A general from the Danubian frontier, I apologize if I'm butchering all these names, Decius was determined to have no nonsense from Christians. In his eyes, they were enemies to the empire. Their atheism, did I say that right? Yep, their atheism was responsible for the many troubles in the realm. Thus, Decius commanded all citizens of the empire to sacrifice to the traditional Roman gods. Those who did not were given, those who did were given certificates as evidence that they had obeyed the order. This is giving me 2020 vibes. Those who refused to obey and were unable or unwilling to obtain false certificates from sympathetic or corrupt officials faced death. To save their lives, many Christians complied. Others were able to obtain certificates without having actually sacrificed. But an unknown number of Christians were imprisoned or executed, among them the Bishop of Rome, Antioch, and Jerusalem. Those who were killed were called martyrs, that is, witnesses. Decius, however, was not out to make heroes. He wanted to discredit Christianity, so many Christians were tortured until they denied Christ by saying Jesus is Lord. If a Christian endured this persecution without denying Christ, he was called a confessor. If a believer under torture did what the Romans demanded, he was classed among the lapsed or the fallen ones. The fury ended, at least for a season, in AD 251, when Decius, deserted by his gods, was killed in a battle with the barbarian Goths. Then the question of readmission to the church arose with striking intensity. Many believers were guilty of apostasy, sometimes as many as 3/4 of the congregation. Without adequate spiritual preparation, they had bowed to imperial pressure. Like Peter in the courtyard of the high priest, they had denied their Lord, and now they wept bitterly. The implications of their exclusion from the church were now clearer than ever. Bishop Cyprian of Carthage said flatly, "Outside the church, there is no salvation." And many agreed with him. Thus, a clamor arose for readmission. But how could the church receive those who had denied the faith? Wasn't this the sin against the Holy Spirit, for which there was no forgiveness? What evil could be worse than to deny, from fear or pain, the only way to salvation? If this is pardoned, anything can be pardoned. So, this then goes into talking about the martyrs and the birth of the saints. But yeah, I'll stop there because I mean that is the question. Is that not the blaspheming the Holy Spirit? My personal opinion. I don't agree with it. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it. But I think it's huge that this thing tells us that there is forgiveness. And what are the implications if there isn't forgiveness, if someone became an apostate? So yeah, love to hear your perspective on these things. Sorry for the long video. I'll try to shorten it down next time, but these are some thoughts I was wrestling with and want to hear what you guys have to say as well. God bless you. Have a good night.